coding agents are not terrible and they aren't going to steal your job. I hate this anecdote, but people who use coding agents are going to steal your job if you don't learn to use them. And if you do work with them and learn to work with them, it can make your job a lot more fulfilling and a lot more fun.
Welcome to the / podcast, where we lean into the future of IT by inviting fellow thought leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to slash through its complexity. I'm your host, James Carman, and today we're talking to Max Heckel. Welcome to the / Max.
Hey, James. Thanks so much for having me.
Max Heckel is the founding software engineer and CTO at Ariso. He previously built SciSummary and led it through acquisition, and now leads product and engineering for Ari, an executive assistant and career coach AI, and Ivan, an AI coding agent orchestrator. His background spans Go, Kubernetes, and full-stack systems focused on shipping reliable AI products. Wow, you're doing some really cool stuff. Well, I got to hear about this AI coding agent orchestrator. So you're kind of rolling your own there?
Yeah. So we're not building a new version of Claude Code or Codex, but really the solution that we were trying to figure out was, how do we code while we sleep? It's kind of born out of necessity, where I'm on a very small team. We've got limited funding. We can't hire, a team of 10 engineers, but we still want to ship super fast. So CEO of the company came to me one day and was like, hey, you guys use these coding agents day to day. How can we kind of take those and make it so we can continue to use them, but not have to actively sit and type prompts and open pull requests and request reviews and kind of all the ancillary stuff that you got to do when using coding agents. So we built Ivan to solve that problem, where you can, just kind of drop in 10 tasks at the end of your day. And it will go through each task sequentially, work on it using a coding agent like Claude Code, and then complete it, open a PR, request a code review from Codex. Codex reviews it. It'll wait for Codex to finish its review and then address the comments. So in the morning when you wake up, you can come in and just see, 10 PRs ready to go. You had a whole team of junior engineers working overnight on tickets. So it's super helpful. We've seen crazy increases in our velocity from it, literally doubling our velocity with our 2 engineers. So yeah, kind of super cool AI coding agent orchestrator.
That's really cool. And are you all making it a product? Is that going to be something you release to the world, or is that just an internal tool?
It's released now. It's free and open source. You can go ahead and get it on GitHub or install it directly with NPM.
Nice.
And yeah, run it today. All that you have to have is a Claude Code API key, Claude Code Max subscription, and an OpenAI API key, and then it will work.
Nice. Okay. How do you like Codex?
Codex is pretty sweet. I mean, we use Codex for code reviews. I originally was using Codex for actual agent or agentic coding stuff, right? Where I'd request it, but I found the UI too clunky, and it was just slow. It's ridiculously slow relative to Claude Code. I haven't used Codex's CLI yet, though. So I will say that I am behind the times on that, but that's also partially because, Claude Code has been doing everything I needed to do. So yeah, but for PR reviews, I do think Codex is pretty phenomenal. It will notice things fairly consistently that humans will miss.
Nice.
With that being said, it will say random stuff sometimes, this is totally inaccurate or false or made up. So it's not like an end all replacement of humans for PR reviews, but it is pretty sweet, very useful.
Yeah, I think that's seems to be the consistent theme, that these things are cool, but not quite all the way cool. There's still the little hiccups, which is understandable. I mean, hey, this stuff hasn't been around very long. I get it. But I mean, I use it day to day myself. Claude Code, love it. So yeah, one reason we wanted to have you on, I mean, you have a unique perspective in that you guys are, you're completely bootstrapping a company, you're AI from the start, AI native, so to speak, right? And just wanted to hear more of that perspective and what does that look like? How to, because some of these big companies, it's kind of hard to, turn that ship, right? But for you all being a startup, how has that experience been for you all?
Yeah. I mean, definitely interesting. It is kind of I almost have to shift left my brain, I'm not just an engineer anymore. I'm not just churning through code. I'm more so at times I'm a project manager, and I'm just leading this team of agents doing stuff. There's certain times when we're doing code reviews or we're looking at stuff, and we'll be like, okay, this code is a little messy, or it's doing this in a weird way, but it's going to be maintained by an agent in the future. So who cares? Like for certain things, I will say, not everything. I don't want to say we're just kind of like vibing with the whole stack here. But there's certain instances where you're just like, yeah, I mean, it's writing it in an agentic way, if you will, like a coding agent way, and you just kind of accept that. You're like, okay, that's how it's going to be able to maintain it better in the future. On top of that, just like a large portion of our work is like optimizing our agents to work on the repo. So giving repo specific instructions, writing markdown files, describing where things are and how to build things. Like we have a whole agent that we designed in Quad Code just to do database migrations because we have a very particular way that we want to do database migrations. And we designed the agent to adhere to that. Like we never do down. An example is we never write down migrations. That's just like a philosophy I've always had because they're dangerous. Like if you accidentally run them, you've deleted the prod database, and that's never good. So we instructed the agent, say, hey, never write down migrations, and it doesn't do that. So yeah, that's been super interesting. Kind of like the project management aspect, but also like building these agents specifically for the code base.
Yeah, that whole notion of like. And it'll be interesting to hear your kind of how you make the distinction, but like the idea of coming to the realization, well, this stuff is going to be maintained by a computer anyway. So the standards that we set for making this consumable by human beings and our tiny little brains compared to what the computer can do, you can throw some of those standards out the window, so to speak, somewhat. Yeah. So how do you choose what part of the code you're going to put like the human level of like rigor and standards, and then the other where it's like, I don't care if the function's 500 lines long, right? How do you make those distinctions?
I mean, anything security related, obviously, we take that super seriously. We don't let the model make any decisions that could potentially compromise user data. So it's never passing like an ID, like we never make it pass an ID or something like that for something. Security stuff, and then just like general best practices when it comes to like data management, right? So like don't do 500 DB lookups in a loop, stuff like that, because the models will still output code like that. So we do still have to correct stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. Like if a file has a bunch of code smells, if it's like a 500 line function, at a certain point, we're like, does it matter? I mean, like, obviously you can't let it get out of hand. You don't want your kind of like back in the day classic monolith of like, this one graybeard engineer wrote, a single file that has 5,000 lines of code and that runs the whole system. I don't think we want to quite go to that level, but I definitely feel a little bit more lenient when it comes to code smells, but not like all forgiving,
Okay. Yeah, I've had engineers I worked with in the past where I kind of describe them as they're too talented for their own good, right? And that means they're just really, when they're writing code, they can understand it, and they're really, really, really good, right? So they can understand the code, so they think it's fine. But to us mere mortals that have to try to come behind them and read that code, is that kind of what it's like for these AI? They can understand 500 lines of code. It's not a problem for them. The context window is big enough. They get it, and they can pull it all in their brain. Is that kind of how you have to approach it?
And I wouldn't even necessarily think it's more like it's not like they write clever code, the models, because the models generally write really dumb code. It's generally very, kind of like straightforward, like single line of thinking. It's more so of like scale of things that the model can keep in its head versus a human. Like if you have like 3 levels of nested conditionals, you might be bad at conceptualizing what is happening at the 3rd level, with like what's going on above it. But the model generally is pretty good at that. So I think it's more so about, like the levels of the levels of logical separations or whatever, but further down in the if statements. I think the model generally I'm more lenient with that, but I still don't accept like clever code from models. I mean, like we still kind of have to. I still have the rule that every single piece of code that the model outputs that I'm submitting for review, I have to understand. Like I never have the excuse of like, oh, why did you write it this way? I never use the excuse of, well, the model decided to do it, so I don't know. Like that's
it looked cool, so I thought, what the heck?
Yeah, it worked when I ran it, so like I don't accept that as an excuse. You have to understand every piece of code the model outputs. Like I look at it as more like if I would have written it that self my way, or written it that way myself, then I'd find it acceptable. But if it writes something that's completely out of left field or doesn't make sense or I don't understand, I will, either run it myself or have the model try again.
Yeah, I was doing a workshop with a client the other day, and we were talking about, kind of rules of thumb, and it's really easy to get lazy with, especially with agentic coding, and that's a slippery slope, and you got to be very disciplined. But that was my rule was, even with juniors, right? How
Yeah,
do you let them grow up in this world? Well, it's fine if they want to use the agentic, mode of some of these tools. However, they have to make sure and be honest with themselves. Do I really understand this code? I
yeah,
need to make sure. But if it's going off and it's doing patterns that I've never heard of or seen in the past, hold on a second. Let me ask it. What's going on here? What is this? And that's a great learning tool, right? It can kind of teach you along the way. But that seems to be like a really good kind of grounding mechanism for developers, is just make sure you understand what's going on. Because again, like you said, I'm signing my name to this thing. And
yeah,
this is my code technically. This isn't, I can't just say, well, Claude did it, right?
yeah,
That doesn't fly. Is
yeah,
that kind of the tactic? Is that what you guys take? I mean, you said you do, but is that kind of you're part of the ethos of what you're doing?
yeah, yeah. Definitely at Ariso, at least, that's kind of like our philosophy. You have to understand the code. Now, you did say something interesting there, which is like it's still my code. We have somewhat of a philosophical debate going on internally right now,
Eh,
where if you merely prompt the model to complete a task, like you read the ticket, you copy conceptually what is in the ticket to the model and say complete it. At that stage, are you qualified to review that and accept that into the code base? Or do you still need another human that is not you who merely typed the prompt but didn't write any code to review and put it in the code base? Obviously, for SOC 2 requirements, we can't
mhm.
say like, it is like you can't say that you reviewed your own code and it's good to go, but you didn't write any of the code, you know?
Mhm.
And if the model got it right on the first shot, like we're kind of like spinning useless man hours here to pass it off to somebody else to review it because I'm not going to submit it for review without reviewing it myself first.
Right.
So now we have like two people reviewing the code, probably redundantly and unnecessarily. Uh, so is it necessary to have the human who prompted it have somebody else review it?
It will be interesting to see where the regulatory bodies go with this. Is do we count the agentic coding mechanism as a developer
Yeah,
in a different person? So because it has to be like separation of duties kind of thing, right? In the past it might be a product manager or a product owner writing the story and saying this is what I want, and then a developer writes the code, and then another developer reviews the code. Hmm, interesting. So where it's an active debate going on with you guys right now, right?
to a certain extent, yeah, because like one of our biggest hurdles that we have right now is we're outputting so much code. We have so many PRs open, because like I said, every night we go to sleep, we can open 10 PRs.
Uh-huh.
Um, that code reviews are the biggest hurdle we have. Just like getting people to go in and make sure it's working and standard code review stuff. Um, so we've discussed this a little bit, and we can't like just accept like because of SOC 2, we can't just merge stuff,
Uh-huh. Right.
But internally, we're like, if we didn't have SOC 2, like we would be totally cool if there were no changes needed. If I literally like copied from the ticket into the coding agent and submitted it and it worked, then I can just review that and say it's good to go because I didn't write the code. I didn't decide how it works. So yeah,
Man. Now it brings up an interesting, and this conversation is probably going to be all over the place because we're just riffing and like two coders, like yeah, just riffing on this AI thing. But like you mentioned, like all of these code reviews, and it's you know that work is not probably what if you grew up as a coder and you love
yeah.
to write software, that's not the work that you were like that drives you. That's not the thing that fulfills you and does and fills your cup, so to speak. How do you deal with the bulk of your work now being review of an agent coding? Because all the good folks, if they grew up writing software, that's not what drives them. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think for me, I want to kind of challenge that a little bit because I don't necessarily think the actual act of strokes on a keyboard are what people really excited about writing code. I think you are reviewing a lot of code, but I mean, as like an engineering leader, you're going to be doing that anyway, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
tech lead, you're going to do that anyway. But also writing code is not just like reviewing AI agent code, like most of the time. It's still, maybe the first pass is a review, but then you do have like a lot of work to do to clean it up, to get it working, to move stuff around, to be in the appropriate place. So yeah, I would challenge that. Like the coding aspect isn't there anymore. It's definitely still there. It's a little bit different, sure. But instead of like me manually writing, my millionth filtering function to pull out specific data from database results, is not super exciting for me. But doing the overall kind of like architecting and development of the feature is exciting. So I would argue that like coding is more exciting for me now, honestly, because I can just get more done and don't have to be kind of in the trenches doing, these tiny little function calls that I've written a million times, over and over again. So.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of thinking of, and I agree that the mechanics of coding, the clickety clack, is not that's not the thing that drives us. It's the puzzle. It's you know what I mean. It's that making sense of the chaotic, right, and putting order to the world, right. That sort of thing is what drives a lot of folks when it comes to software engineering. But I guess in a certain sense, maybe you're doing more of that than you were before, like because you. At a certain point, you're not solving the problem. You have to go through the mechanics of clickety-clacketing all the code together. Now I don't have to do that as much. I can actually focus on all the problem solving all the time. So maybe it drives you more. Interesting.
No, and that's how I view it. I mean, like I am absolutely more productive in getting more done. So I do get to do more of the higher level problem solving. And the more I would think, interesting work, the more interesting work is doing that higher level problem solving. So, yeah.
Coding while you sleep thing. And I love that idea.
Yeah.
We've had that forever. We just called that offshoring, right? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But it is. I mean, follow the sun, blah, blah, the same old stuff. But is it the same as that model of the offshore model? Are we treating it the same way? Is it different inherently? Tell me how do those skills translate? Is it, I don't know, is it the same in your experience?
So it's different from offshoring, I think, because when I had offshoring teams, they would act more as or offshore teams, they would act more as a cohesive unit. They would get they wouldn't just open the PRs. They would merge the PRs and work on their own, and like at least a good offshore team would. I think a very bad offshore team would be somebody who just opens a bunch of PRs at night and expects you to review them in the morning. Like that's not necessarily what you're paying them for. You're paying them to be like a full engineering team, not just coding agents. So I think it is different. I think it's more so like it's almost like a Pomodoro timer, if that makes sense. If you've ever heard of that, where it's another way to like frame work. Like for me personally, because I might close of those 10, 3 PRs. PRs are cheap. That's another thing that we kind of had to realize, is that opening a PR is not a sacred act anymore. Like it felt like in the old days, pre-AI agents, you open a PR, it's like, oh my God, I'm committing code. It's ready to go. I worked so hard on it. Like it's kind of a sacred act. And nowadays PRs are just kind of like throwaway. There might be 500 lines of changes in this PR, but who cares? The agent wrote it. It just costs some electricity and, like maybe some thought power. But we're going to throw it out. So, yeah, I don't know.
It was like an act of Congress in the past.
yeah. It was like a lot of work. But nowadays, like when I wake up in the morning, I have those PRs. And like I said, it's it's not necessarily an offshore team. It's more of like a like Pomodoro technique for me to kick off the day, because I have these, now 7 PRs that I've decided are valid and I have to review and test and get ready to go. I will say, Ivan, the coding agent orchestrator, opens all PRs in draft mode. So we don't consider them actually ready to review by humans until we mark them ready to review. So that's kind of like the flow that we have now with that opens them up overnight. You might close some, you review some, you mark it ready for review when you've tested it and checked the code yourself. So a little bit different from offshoring, I would say.
What about the idea that, I mean, I know you said like creating the PRs is cheap. And do you find yourself doing, well, 2 questions here. Do you find yourself doing more like experiments? Because it is so cheap to kind of send an agent down a path like, let's try this design pattern or this architectural pattern for this thing I'm building. and let's try this other one as well. Let's do an experiment and look at the code. Like, you go take this technique, and then you take this technique. Go do a bake off for me. Do you find yourself doing that?
I don't necessarily have like AI combat with PRs or something like that.
Oh
I don't know what you
Lord.
would call it, where it's like, but work on this task in 2 different ways and show me the results. I don't necessarily do that. Um, what I will do is I will have like experiments in the sense of like, how far can I push the agent? Like, how broad of instructions can I give it? Or very, very detailed instructions. Like, some of these tasks are like 3 paragraphs, like, do this in this file, go through and do this, do like very specific instructions. And then if it's a very complicated task, I give it like, a 50-50 shot. It'll even be useful. But like I said, PRs they're cheap. Who cares? If it's not useful, you just throw it out in the morning. So yeah, no, I don't necessarily do the experimentation when it comes to like, architecturally, would this technique work? With that being said, I just don't think we're at Ariso, where I've used the majority of our coding agents. I just don't think we've had the opportunity to really take a step back and look at our code base architecturally like that. We've just, we're very early. We've only been around 9 months. So we're still just heads down building. We haven't really had like a big architecture audit yet. So I'm sure it would be very useful once we do get to that stage, but just haven't tried it yet.
I haven't done that either, but I was just kind of thinking through that. That might be an interesting way to kind of, because that's one of the things we do as architects is consider different options for architecture. And a lot of times I know I'll get down a rabbit hole and I'm like, man, this really sounded cool when I first started, but this sucks.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I got to rip all this out and then redo it another way. But it might be cool to like be able to like kind of try 3 or 4 different ways of structuring things and, designs and that sort of, that might be an interesting thing to do.
I will say one cool thing that we do use it for occasionally that's a little bit different from just, like giving it explicit tasks, is you can give it a broad task. Like, for instance, I'll occasionally go in and I'll be like, hey, add unit tests to the most critical parts of the code base. And it will use Claude Code in planning mode to come up with like explicit tasks from that after reading through the code base and finding that out. And then just execute those in parallel, or not parallel, synchronously overnight while you sleep.
Nice.
So you wake up, you didn't even tell it like, oh, add tests to this part. But you wake up and it's found like, the 10 or 20 most critical places to add unit tests and open up PRs, adding it to those places. So, yeah.
Now, because I've tried this before, and the thing that caught me was the stupid permissions with Claude Code. Do you find yourself just firing up Claude Code with like, go for it mode, the dangerous mode?
I do it in go for it mode, in the dangerous mode. And that has yet to bite me, but we are very hardcore locked down when it comes to like connecting to non-local infrastructure.
Okay.
So if I just had like a .env file with the dev and prod database credentials in it or something, not that he can work for prod for us, but some people have it set up that way. Then I probably would avoid that.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
The agent might just be like, oh, let's see how this works in dev. Hold on, I need to refresh the dev database to test how this works in dev. And then it just deletes the dev database or something, So yeah, I mean, like we have a lockdown from an infrastructure standpoint that it is, somewhat ambiguous how you could connect to dev. You kind of just have to know how to do it. And the agent just can't figure it out. So
gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was trying to be, like you guys. And I was like, it was late at night when I'm like, I want you to go through this refactoring or whatever while I'm sleeping. Go do some work for me, minion. And I fired it off and was like, okay, I can do that. And then I come back to my desk in the morning. It's like, it was stuck on will you let me do this thing? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're going to be kidding me. So I have not gotten in the habit of like firing it up in dangerous mode or whatever the name is. I just made up 2 different ways of saying it, but like whatever that mode is, I have not gotten in the habit of firing it up because it is a little scary and they say, oh, be careful. But but I always say yes.
So yeah, I think the healthy middle ground is just letting it access your file system and edit files. Don't give it access to the internet, and don't give it access to like Git, running Git commands. Because that's kind of how I run it. I guess I don't run it with like everything enabled. Like it does ask me like, I want to run this Git command. Is that cool? Or I want to run this like sed command on your file system. Is that cool? So yeah, I do, but I do run it just allowing all file edits. Because in theory, that's all it should need to accomplish its task. And if it needs more, then the task was too complicated,
Right.
So,
okay. So I was going down a path. Again, I said we're going to be all over the place because this is going to be a fun conversation. we're just geeking out here. So you said PRs are cheap, which is true, but the reviewing and kind of seeing those things through, can be expensive because you do need human beings involved. Have you found, like, how have you settled on kind of that middle ground? Because you don't want to fire up you don't want to be, just firing up 100 PRs just because they're cheap, because people have to review them. How have you decided on what's the right mix there?
Yeah, so I mean, that's why we do have it open them in draft mode, and we basically told everybody, hey, don't review anything that's in draft,
Okay.
even though it's there, don't look at it. It's not ready. Nobody's checked it out yet. So that's the first thing that we did. The second thing that we did is we have made an agreement between all of our engineers that when you open a PR as ready to review, and this honestly, I mean, it should be at any healthy org, you should do this. You have tested it locally and it works locally, the thing that you're trying to change, but that's not always the case. Sometimes people are like, I didn't run it locally, whatever. It happens in some engineering orgs. So that way, once you do get to reviewing a pull request, there is an assumption that you don't need to spin it up locally and run it locally. You just need to review the quality of the code because you can assume the feature actually works and does what it's supposed to do. So we are just having an assumption that you have built the feature in the correct way without running the feature itself and testing it like by actually booting it up on your local machine. So those are really the only two ways that we found to combat this, though. Because it is tough. There's just a ton of code to review. And as well as using Codex does make it less likely that there's bugs, but you still have to review the whole code. I mean, like, the fact that you had a pre-review by Codex doesn't make the review any less strenuous. You still have to go through and do basically the same amount of steps through the code as you would if an agent hadn't reviewed it. So really, we are still kind of struggling with this. We have tried spinning up like integration testing reviews with like Playbook, or what is it called? Playbook or Playwright?
Playwright, yeah.
Yeah, Playwright. And it works. It's just like insanely slow, and it's just churning through tokens. When I could run, npm run dev, spin it up in my browser, look at it, click a few buttons, and be good to go in 45 seconds. It'll take 30 minutes to do that. So we haven't really found a healthy balance here of like getting these code reviews done in a meaningfully productive way that matches how fast we're creating the PRs themselves.
So the human element, the human in the loop, is the natural throttling mechanism where even if the AI agent can do 100 PRs, we still have a human in the loop as that throttle. Now, another thing that I've always wondered about, like, what have you found? How do you make sense of this? And this happens with human beings too, but I think it's exacerbated because of the speed at which AI can do things. What about, if you go to bed at night and you say, go do 10 things, and it's doing it in parallel, obviously if they're touching the same files, now you've got merge conflicts and all that sort of stuff. How do you, I guess with your human in the loop, they're resolving the merge conflicts if there are any, but that seems to be like something that's could be a big problem coming, looming for us with if we're doing all this parallel agent work, that we're just going to run into merge conflicts like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that is the case. Like, we do have a lot of merge conflicts fairly often. I will say we don't do them in parallel. We do them synchronously, right?
Okay,
so
that helps.
And that's kind of like the coding while you sleep aspect, right? The reason we didn't do them parallel is exactly for the reason that you're describing, where if we were checking out of a new branch and continuously like iterating on this branch, we're just going to have like tons and tons of merge conflicts at the end of the day. As well as it's just more complicated to get them to work in parallel. You have to like Dockerize it and like run these containers that have the necessary tooling installed. But I will say, we do run synchronously in Git work trees so that it doesn't actually affect your local environment if you are working. Which is actually super nice, because like one of the biggest pains with these coding agents, that I don't know if you've encountered this, when it's running, you can't touch your code base because it might modify a file and then all of a sudden it's confused and you're confused and stuff is going all over the place, right? So getting Ivan to run in Git work trees also is just like a super useful utility where like even if you don't want to use it as like kind of the running in the background, or I'm sorry, not as the running while you sleep, you can still use it to parallelize work between yourself and your coding agent. So like you can just kick off an Ivan task in the background while you work on your day-to-day tasks.
Sure.
So yeah,
I have seen that, like if if I go and I see something in a file, because you're like, oh, I think that should be refactored and do that a little differently. If I mess with it, sometimes Claude will be like, oh, I noticed you already changed that file. It's like it gets all mad at you.
It gets angry at you.
Yeah, it
it's like,
does.
wait, the file changed.
Yeah, I was in the middle of something. You're messing with me here. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, who's in charge here? Claude?
I
Is
mean,
it
if
you
you
or
think
me?
about it, it's legit because it's like, imagine if you were like coding and then somebody just came over and put their hands on your keyboard, like,
Yeah, it's
started,
fair. It's a
started
legit
messing with
gripe.
you,
Yeah, it's fair. And to be fair, he's doing most of the coding, so maybe I should be nice.
Yeah.
All right. What about one thing we talked about that is kind of an interesting aspect and a unique perspective that you have is this isn't your first rodeo doing an AI company. Tell us what has your path been? How did you get here?
Yeah. So I have always been super interested in machine learning. But I never had the time or really the math chops to like write actual models. I did some very, very basic model training in AWS. I can't even remember what it was called. They had like this tool like 7 years ago that I built a recommendation engine, or no, sorry, it was a fraud detection agent.
Oh yeah.
That would like, take all these orders that we had in our system and determine the percentage chance that this one is fraud. I think it was just basic linear regression, like super, super basic machine learning. Then, LLM started coming out back with the GPT-2. I was messing with it, doing dumb little projects like make song lyrics like my favorite band, stuff like that. And then after that, I kind of moved with GPT-3. And that was when the fine tuning stuff came out from OpenAI, the fine tuning API, and I started messing with that. I think the first thing I made was an infinite Reddit thread, because I would read these like scary stories on Reddit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I could just train a model to like create like, oh, what's your scariest blah blah story, ghost story or something, and it would like be trained on all of the Ask Reddit threads that are like that, and then it would create a new Reddit thread that I could read infinitely about like spooky stories like that. So I fine tuned a model to do that, and then from there just tinkered with models and built a bunch of what is it called problems or solutions looking for problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like where none of them were really useful or anything like that, but I wanted like to build something that scaled and hit actual users and like actually mattered to people for a while. This was the time I was at Google when I was doing all this stuff because I was just bored out of my mind. Google kind of made me a cog in the wheel. I went from leading 3 teams in McGraw-Hill, shipping all sorts of software, to changing config files all day. So I had a lot of coding pent up energy,
Yes.
like I wanted to write code. So I was talking about this stuff with my wife all the time and stuff, and she is a PhD chemist. She worked for Battelle here in Columbus, and she was like, hey, why don't you make a thing to summarize research papers for me, because I have to read research papers all the time. Literally that day, wrote on my whiteboard summary, and built like the first version over the course of a week. And initially it was really, really rudimentary. It was literally like you just paste in the PDF. I ran PDF to text on it. It converted it to raw text, passes it to the model with a very basic prompt, like summarize this research paper, and then it spit out the results. So I rode the wave of kind of like the AI entering the zeitgeist because, OpenAI couldn't accept PDF files at the start. It couldn't accept any file upload. So I kind of hit that wave. And then from there, really learned about the industry and how like it's keeping track of research papers is just super outdated. There's these things called reference managers. The most popular one is called Zotero, and it literally looks like it was built in the 90s. Like it looks like it's a Java applet.
Oof.
And it's bad. It's gotten a lot better since then. But so I kind of morphed SciSummary into like just this research paper summarizer into like an AI powered reference manager, and just grew it organically over the past 3 years. I launched it in January of 2023, December 2022, around that time, and grew it for 2-3 years. Got it. It's at 850,000 users now.
Wow.
And
Nice.
eventually got it acquired in April of this year by Ariso, which Ariso is actually founded by my old boss. So that was an interesting story where I was going to sell SciSummary. I had 2 letters of intent to purchase SciSummary. And then I quit my day job because I was like, I'm selling my company. I'm out, or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
And my old boss reached out to me and he was like, yo, do you want to like have me buy SciSummary instead? And then you can just come work for me on this new thing. And yeah, he bought SciSummary as kind of like a test bed, as well as like just a big user base to like kind of jumpstart Arizo's growth once we're ready to do a general launch.
That's a pretty expensive way to maintain or like to retain an employee. You know what I mean? I'll
Yeah,
just buy the company that you want to sell,
yeah.
and yeah, well, hey, that must mean you're good.
Yeah,
That's
I was
good.
gonna say I did definitely a top 10 days or top 5 days of my career, like feeling valuable to my employers.
Heck yeah, that's
So
cool.
yeah.
And so that was you no longer work for that company though. Is that right?
I do still work on it.
Or you
Yes.
do? Okay, I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
figure out the. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
still it's owned by Arizo.
Okay, that's right.
And
You
it's
said
still
that.
growing and evolving, and we're adding features. We actually are trying to get a little bit more community driven.
Mm-hmm.
We have NC State, their senior computer science capstone course design project is working on features for SciSummary, which is super cool. They're actually doing their presentation in like 2 weeks with their final build out of what we're having them build, which is a literature review mode. So it's taking our AI summarization capabilities to identify gaps in the research from groups of research papers, and then using
Mm-hmm.
that to find new papers using a paper database, and then taking those new papers, running them back through the model to analyze the current state of the research about this thing that you're trying to do more research about, and give you a literature review based on it. So, yeah.
It'd be a good tool to use for like, what can I have my thesis be? There's
That's
just so much
basically
of it.
exactly
Yeah.
100%. I mean, like that discovery aspect of it, where it's like I'm interested in this subject, and then it will
Mm-hmm.
find a bunch of papers on that subject, find gaps in the research on that subject, and then find research on those gaps, and then give you a presentation of where the science is at right now for what you might want to research.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, how
Yeah,
did you get involved with NC State? You're up in Columbus, Ohio, right? So how
I
did NC
am.
State
Yeah,
come into? How'd you get the Wolf Pack involved?
yeah. The CEO of Ariso, Urkong, he went to NC State, and he actually was just inducted as like an honorary something. I feel bad. I can't remember this, Urkong. So if you listen to this, I'm sorry.
We'll edit it
But
in. We'll
yeah,
edit it in later. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it was. He was in like that room in the every university where they've got all of the super influential people
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
went to this department. He got its picture in one of those rooms. So
Oh,
he was inducted into the honorary society of the computer science program or something. I can't remember what it was called,
nice.
but yeah. So he went to NC State and he had it in there, and that's kind of how we got working with that.
Funny. My old employer, I worked for Cengage Learning. They bought a company that they were headquartered on the campus of NC State. So they seem like they're very much into this, like this research world and
Yeah.
education world. That's cool. That's
You
a
work
neat
for
university.
Cengage?
I did. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I remember McGraw Hill. We would always talk about Cengage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Nice.
there was an attempt at wasn't there supposed to be a
The
merger
acquisition
between
thing. Yeah.
an acquisition
And then,
merger or
and then
something?
it fell
Yeah.
through.
Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was WebAssign was the company that was down on
Cool.
NC State campus, and they had a cool office down there and everything. Loved that campus. I would go down there all the time. It was a really, really nice campus. I love it down
Yeah.
there.
Raleigh and Research Triangle is just like beautiful. It's a great
Yeah.
spot.
It's so cool. Great food. Great food.
Yeah.
Oh man, such
Yeah.
good food. All right. So you're sold off a company, went to work for the company that bought the company, and now you're still doing this and you're building new products. So you're living the AI dream, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, like, didn't even like intend to find myself and live in the AI dreamland. I really like working on SciSummary. I like working on uh, AI projects, and like didn't expect myself to be like leading up one in this manner per se, but I'm super stoked to be doing it. It's super fun.
Now, being kind of an AI native company, how far are you all, do you find yourself needing to push the envelope? Some folks think, oh, if I'm going to do AI, I've got to be training my own foundational models and all this mumbo jumbo. Where do you feel like the sweet spot is on kind of that spectrum of just like, prompting all the way up to fully training your own foundational model? Like where's the sweet spot for it? And I guess it depends on the use case, but where are you seeing most people are going to land?
I think the overwhelming majority of people will land on not fine tuning models.
Mm-hmm.
I think that generally, unless you have a very rigid set of responses that you would expect
Mm-hmm.
and by very rigid, I mean rigid in the AI era, not necessarily like it's a chatbot that can return 5 things. I'm talking like maybe hundreds or a thousand responses that you would expect. Fine tuning is probably not going to be worth it. Uh, in the foundational models nowadays, especially with like function calling and thinking mode and all that fun stuff, are very, very good at doing general tasks in
Mm-hmm.
specific ways consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see people unless you're wanting to, and by fine tuning, I mean very small sample size, very little. You
Yeah,
don't need billions of labeled data and all of that sort of stuff, like very small
yeah,
sizes for just very, very fine tuning. Like, oh, I want the tone to be like this whenever you answer
yeah,
those sort of things. Maybe, man, I don't know. I don't see people need to get into, as you're saying, those foundation models that are there are already pretty darn good at what they do. You don't need to do your own. So I don't know. It'll be
so
interesting to see the small models, how we evolve to this, that kind of mixture of experts kind of a thing over time.
yeah. A good example of when we use fine tuning that was actually very useful is that my old company had a custom dialect of SQL that they wrote.
Mm.
And we fine tuned a model on writing that from natural language to custom SQL dialect. And that did work very well. It did have to take a few iterations, but it was better than just, kind of standard throwing few shot training, like here's samples of the SQL and here's the rules. The fine tuned model did do better.
Okay. The geek in me cannot let you just gloss over. We wrote our own SQL dialect. All right, lay it on me.
Yeah.
What was this all about? Tell me about this.
Unfortunately, I was not there when we wrote that. It was called J1QL. I used to work for Jupyter One.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically a way to query a graph database before Cypher was really a big thing.
Okay.
They had a Neptune database too, and it didn't support Cypher, but also Cypher is just kind of ugly and like the syntax isn't very user friendly. And they wanted to make it. Jupyter One's whole goal is to make it so that project managers and CISOs can go in and query all of their security assets and see, like where vulnerabilities are. So doing that with
Gotcha.
like a plain kind of SQL like dialect before LLMs was the best kind of way that they could do that. Now they have this super awesome MCP server that they can run. That
Nice.
you can kind of ask plain language questions, and it'll call Jupyter One. Like in ChatGPT, you can attach the MCP server, and it'll call Jupyter One and work super well actually. So yeah,
I can see that. It's more like a domain specific language kind of thing rather than
yeah,
like I got
yeah.
what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. All
But
right.
nowadays, I mean, it could just be Cypher, like right. I mean, like it's a somewhat dumbed down version of Cypher with some fancy dialect or fancy keywords and stuff and stanzas
Mm-hmm.
that you can add to make things simpler.
Gotcha. Very cool. So what's next from technology perspective? Where are the areas you're exploring from, where you're pushing the envelope, or if you are, maybe you're just at the point where this is awesome, this is doing what we need. But what are some areas where you see you're going to, go further with AI and in helping you bootstrap this company?
Yeah, I think so. We have around. I think where we're going to hit our limits is tool calling.
Hmm.
So we have around 50 internal tool calls that can be made by our agent that we're building right now. And
Mm-hmm.
we're fastly approaching that limit on tool calls. So we
Absolutely.
have some ideas around how we can make that better and have contextually ready tool calls. So not like static tool calls available to the model, but more so like tool calls available at given times, depending on what the model is currently trying to do. So that's something super interesting that we've kind of already developed because people can attach whatever MCP servers they want. And we've got this working for custom MCP servers. If they attach, like 15 MCP servers, it adds, 500 tools. We can't just provide 500 tools to the model on every call.
Yeah, it's the token explosion. The
Yeah.
model itself gets confused. There's too much to choose from. It's like,
And
going to
there's
the
actually
grocery
hard
store.
limits.
Yeah, trying to pick a
Yeah.
cereal in the cereal aisle. Well, what do I
Yeah.
even do here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, give me Golden Grams. Um,
Yeah.
I was working through a blog post on that. I haven't published it yet, but it was something around the idea of like, I was trying to come up with a quippy name for it, but like, let the the agent like plan first without knowing what tools are available. Just say, here's how I would go, basically do a first draft. Here's how I would approach that. And then let it like search for tools that can do what it thinks it needs to do. Then it gets back the tools that it finds and it says, okay, I don't have a tool available for this or whatever. So instead of just throwing all 500 tools at the thing, you
Yeah.
let it kind of make a best guess first and then kind of refine it based on what tools are actually available. So,
Yeah. We've done an incredible amount of experimentation around that, trying to optimize the model for it.
mhm.
And I don't want to reveal our secrets here about like what worked best per se. But yeah, something like that didn't end up working out. But yeah, no, it's super interesting trying to get it the right context. Because really, I mean, like most of these AI agents that people are building could be called like we built they could be called the right context agent. It's like we built a thing that got the right context to the model at the right time and asked the right question and got the right result. Therefore, we have a product, you know? um, and I mean, honestly, I'm not saying this like it's a bad thing. I mean, I
No.
think that's like the core of what this is. It's kind of like the new what do they call it? Any website is just a wrapper on a database.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of like what LLMs are, or agentic tools are. They're wrappers on context, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting, like there's all these, not only are there, possibilities, but there's all kinds of new problems that didn't exist before that people
Yeah.
can find products and solve those problems for people. So this is going to be, it's going to be a lot of fun over the next, 5 years or so
Yeah.
as we work our way through all this craziness for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next section of the show is ship it or skip it.
Ship or skip, everybody we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
All right. So ship it or skip it. How this works is, it's kind of like hot or not kind of a thing. We come up with a topic and you say, oh yeah, absolutely ship it. That means it's good, or skip it. Nah, I don't like it. That's bad. One thing that's interesting is this idea of, and you're kind of living this world of, in the past, the traditional model of startups was, you have to get a bunch of funding because it's very expensive to build these products, especially software products, right? It's very, very expensive. You have to hire a bunch of people and all that. Now AI is changing the equation. Does that obviate the need for funding cycles?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think I can give a hardcore ship it or skip it answer for that. But I would say it depends on the company. I think there are going to be a lot of companies that traditionally needed a lot of funding that don't need it anymore.
Uh-huh.
SciSummary, prime example. Like built a lot of that with coding agents towards the end. Never accepted outside funding, totally bootstrapped and grew organically, and it worked for that. But if I was trying to, build a sales team and sell to, universities and like expand out and become a $50, $100 million a year company, probably needed to raise some capital,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it may just lessen the need, maybe not obviate completely, right? It's, yeah, you don't have to give away as much of your company anymore. So that's a good thing.
Exactly.
I think,
Yeah. I agree. It is democratizing in a way because of that. It's similar to like we have better tools when computers first came about. I'm sure that they had to raise a lot less capital for doing like hiring accountants and hiring CPAs and hiring all these people to do stuff with that you can do now with QuickBooks.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now you mentioned democratization. What do you think about this whole? I mean, the democratization of the task and the world and the art of software engineering. Do you see that as a good thing or a bad thing?
I think I'm going to quote Peter Parker's uncle: "With great power comes great responsibility." In that it's great that people can build new products and stuff, but I don't think we've quite gotten over the Dunning-Kruger gap of like I can build a whole company from my bedroom overnight in the weekend and it'll launch and we haven't quite gotten over that hump yet. We are still kind of in the .com internet boom era of AI. And eventually we'll realize it and it'll like settle for a bit. And then product managers will be able to come to you and say like, hey, I built a prototype of this over the weekend, and not expect it to be just like in prod the next day, but might be like, hey, this is feasibly possible. Here's a way that I did it. And here's how the agent did it. And now take that and run and build something out of it. So I think democratization generally is good. I think people are kind of playing with fire a little bit right now, but it'll settle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that seems to be the consensus right now, is that yes, the democratization is good. We like that more people are able to express themselves, but when it comes to like building products that you're going to charge people money for, there probably still needs to be a little bit of rigor around that and experience and whatnot. I love that you brought up Peter Parker's Uncle Ben. Who would have known that he was going to be such an influential character in the modern era? I thought all he did was make rice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's the same Uncle Ben, right? No, just
kidding.
Yeah. Part of the multiverse. Well, in another universe, he was making rice all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the idea of like, learning specific languages anymore? Like I've been doing Java since 1998. I'm a Java developer, or I'm a Swift developer, or whatever. What do you think that's still a thing, that level of specialization?
I do. I mean, just because there are smells with any language, there's
Mm-hmm.
weirdness with any language, and the models are just straight up better at certain languages.
Mm.
I don't have direct experience with this. This is stuff I've read online, to take it with a grain of salt. But I've seen that, like working on a more niche language, like if you had a model try to write a bunch of COBOL, it's
Mm.
probably not going to do as good as writing a bunch of TypeScript, because there just is more TypeScript code out there and more examples and more training data. So I don't necessarily agree that the models are the end all be all for language and language diversity. As far as engineers go, as far as like skill sets go, just because the models are not phenomenal at every language quite yet. I will say, using Claude Code did make me a better TypeScript developer. Anytime it does something or some weird output, I will look it up and work, because you remember I said, like, you have to understand what it does. So if I don't understand something, instead of just throwing it out, sometimes I'll just be like, well, let me figure out why it did that. Let me figure out this feature of the language. So, it did make me a better TypeScript developer, and in general, it makes you a better developer if you know how to use it.
Yeah, I think it accelerates learning for me, because the language models were trained on all these different code bases, so they'll use something, a coding pattern or an architectural imperative that I wouldn't know about necessarily, and it'll just generate that in the code, and then I'll be like, wait a minute, what is that? Why
Yeah.
did you do that there? Well, that's pretty interesting, and then it can explain it to me. Whereas I wouldn't even have known what to Google for. I wouldn't even have known to ask that question, especially because I'm probably good enough to be called dangerous with TypeScript. I'm not great at it, but yeah, I learn a ton. I just watch, it'll generate something. I'm like, wait a minute, what is that right there you did there? And yeah, it's a great learning tool. What do you think about this? I know there's kind of some doomsday things going on when it comes to our world of software engineering. Do you see it? Are you bullish or bearish when it comes to AI and how it's going to affect our world from when it comes to software engineers?
I would say I'm more bearish for sure. I think that the level of roles that are going to come out of AI, like what are the new term for a role, like Gen AI engineer or something like that, which who knows what that even is? It's like a blockchain engineer, or whatever they were calling it back in the day. I don't think there's going to be enough of those to fill the gap left by getting rid of every junior engineer. Which isn't to say that we are going to get rid of every junior engineer, but it's going to eliminate those roles, a majority of them, I would say, even like of junior engineering roles, because they're not necessary for day-to-day work anymore. They're just going to be necessary to like kind of like train the next generation of engineers at the company, which kind of like we've seen historically companies are very bad at doing. So yeah.
I guess I'm a little more bullish on it. I would say I do think I agree that what we currently task our junior folks with, absolutely, AI is it just does that, right? And we don't really need to have human beings do that. I think the work is shifting. It will shift. I also think that my hope is that the market will adjust up. I think we've kind of been in this cycle for so long of being constrained of how much stuff we can do based on, it's cost prohibitive to do a lot of software engineering. It costs a lot of money to hire a bunch of, bald guys like you and me to clickety clack on a keyboard for hours and hours. It used to cost a lot of money for that. Whereas you don't need that now. I think I'm hoping that that constraint is no longer there. I don't think I think the constraint was implementation of the software, not ideas. But I think the ideas got artificially constrained by, the money that it costs to implement the thing. So I think taking the shackles off a little bit there is I think we're going to see a almost like a renaissance of some of these ideas that might have been cost prohibitive to do in the past. Some of these big things we actually can tackle. I hope that's where the industry goes. That's my vision.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that per se, because the limiter wasn't ever like hands on the keyboard per se. That obviously was a limiter to a certain extent. Just straight up, how many keys can we press in a given amount of time? The limiter is always bureaucratic. It's always like, what do we ship
true.
first? Like, well, we have a million ideas and now we can build all of them. Cool. Now we build all of them. Now we have a million things built. What do we ship first?
Yeah, there's still going to be that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Humans be humans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have to work through that. Maybe the computers can help us there too.
Yeah. Honestly, I always do like the quip that, the best role for AI to replace is middle management.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that will be the case. And then we will become, go into this like new era of, the Garden of Eden of coders where there is no middle management, no bureaucracy, and just you build stuff and the unit test task and you ship it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wouldn't that be great? We've been dreaming of this for so long, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Our next section of the show is our lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
And of course, if you've listened to the show, you know that this is the most important part. This is what everybody shows up for. There are correct answers. We don't know what they are because it's some nebulous grading and scoring algorithm that we have, proprietary algorithm. We have no idea what the correct answers are, so I can't even really tell you, even if I wanted to. But this is what everybody tunes in for. So please give it its due respect. You know what I mean? Prepare yourself mentally.
Okay.
Be ready to go because this is the big time. What's your favorite type of muffin?
Man, Costco has these lemon muffins that are just freaking phenomenal. Like lemon blueberry muffins. Love them.
They are good. I have had those. What about that Costco, the cinnamon bread? Have you had that?
No, I haven't had that.
We were at Costco one time, and this is what we call it in our house. And I was looking at it. I was like, oh, that looks pretty good. And this old guy walked by me. He's like, hey, man, that bread will change your life. So we call it change your life bread. And that's what it's referred to in our house. But it is really good. He was right. It changed my life. So anyway, all right. I digress. What's your favorite type of carbohydrate? Bread, pasta, rice, or potatoes?
Pasta for sure. I make my own homemade pasta. I love to cook, and I can actually loop this back to software engineering, and that cooking is the perfect like analog for software engineering in the real world, except it's not as stressful. Because what is the joke? It's like you don't find out that your peeler stopped supporting carrots 5 versions ago. Like but it's very similar. You're putting stuff together, you're figuring things out, you're experimenting. I love cooking. I love making pasta. So yeah,
that is one of those common things. So cooking, music, woodworking. There's a few like because I do a lot of interviewing. I'm sure you do too. But those are some of those like those hobbies that software engineers have a lot of. Cooking is a big one. A lot of software engineers like to cook. Me, I just like to eat. That's my. I do enjoy eating. Do you like the name Charlie for a girl?
I don't mind it. I mean, Charlie's Angels. I guess Charlie wasn't a girl, and
Charlie was the guy in the speaker.
The guy. But no, I don't know. I guess I don't mind it.
Did you go to sleepaway summer camp as a kid?
I went to 1 week of summer camp. It was gymnastics camp, but it was also at a skate park. Because I was just the coolest kid ever, I guess. And I spent all of my money that my parents gave me for food that week on a skate deck.
All right. Nice. Gymnastics.
I did it for 13 years.
No kidding. Like, because you need to do all the flips and all that stuff?
The goal is I'm gonna go out doing a backflip.
Okay. All right.
When I'm like 80, I'm just gonna try to pull one out, and that's how I go out.
It's funny. I have arthritis in my shoulders. I had it because I don't know, I think karate caused it or something. But like just watching some of those gymnasts, they hold themselves up off the ground with their hands way back. Like, how do you even do that? That hurts watching you do that. So
can't do it anymore.
Okay. Well, do you Instagram your food?
No. I will take pictures of nice food that I make. Generally stuff I make. I never Instagram like food at like restaurants. I don't know. I'm just going to eat it. But if I make something nice, I want to remember the nice thing I made. So I'll take a picture of it. But I won't like post it.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to Mariah Carey, where would you put yourself on for karaoke skills?
God, -10. Like
-10.
terrible.
Okay. So nowhere near Mariah Carey.
Nowhere near. Like I'm one of those people that goes to karaoke, and people at karaoke are like, he needs to get off the stage.
Yeah, like throw things at this person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite clothing brand?
Are they coming brands? I don't know. I don't care about clothes.
They have brands? There's brands on these things? Yeah. It's a shirt and I wear
Amazon?
it. Yeah, Amazon's a brand, right? Yeah. Okay. I like it. All right. Are you a Sour Patch Kid or a Swedish Fish kind of a guy?
Ooh, that's tough.
Mm.
Oh man, I don't know.
This is a hard-hitting questions.
I'm gonna go Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, I like sour. Yeah. I like sour candies myself.
But Swedish Fish do have that very distinct taste. Like no other candy tastes like a Swedish Fish. I don't know what they put in it in Switzerland or Sweden.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that circus peanuts, no.
You know what? I think they get a bad rap.
Oh, here we go. Now I actually did like them as a kid, but now,
yeah, I did too.
I wonder, how do they even make it like that? That foam, it's almost like a yoga mat, like a texture. How do they even do that now? I'm going to worry about putting that in my body.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend in college who was like obsessed with circus peanuts, and she loved them. So
I wouldn't say obsessed, but I think they get a bad rap. They're not bad candy. They're just sweet, foamy orange things.
Now, I say that, and I'm uppity about circus peanuts. However, we have every year at Calibrity, internally in the office, we have our annual candy corn smackdown, and we're always yelling. We have team candy corn and we have team anti candy corn. And where do you fall on that topic?
I'm pro candy corn. I can crush some candy corn.
I love candy corn. I'm not ashamed of it. We have people that say, "Oh, it's like earwax with sugar in it." And like, no, come on, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right, let's see here. Black beans or refried beans in your burrito?
Black beans. Yeah.
Good choice. Let's see. Oh, I had one earlier because you used the word, so I assume this would be fine for you. Most guests, I don't pull this out on most guests, but you used it. So define the word zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist? Like public perception and entering the ethos of the general population.
I like it. Have you ever been to Africa?
No. Wouldn't mind going.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a cool place to visit.
I think it'd be beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
Although I've heard Cairo in Egypt is just terrible. So anywhere over there, I guess. Oh yeah. I'll consistently, I read online that Cairo is a terrible place to visit. Yeah.
Are you a Godfather or a Star Wars kind of a person?
I have never seen Godfather. It's one of those movies where I'm like, I'm waiting for that rainy weekend to watch, like all three of them. I've always heard it's like one of the best movies ever made. It's phenomenal and stuff, but just never got around to watching it.
What's your ideal outside temperature?
65.
65. Okay. If everyone in the world had to get married when they reached a certain age, what would that age be?
32.
32. Okay.
That's when I got married.
Okay, so that you did it perfectly then. That's fair.
Yeah, I nailed it.
Yeah, right on the money. Exactly. All right. Sticks the landing, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
See what I did there? Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes this lightning round. Again, as I said, no idea how you did. I'd have no idea. There's the proprietary algorithm. They don't even tell me what it is. I have no access to that. It's it's part of Sarbanes-Oxley. They told me. They said that we can't show you this. I don't know. It was some rule of some sort of regulations or whatever. But we will be tabulating. We'll have the robots go through all of their bleeps and bloops and whatnot, and we'll get back to you on the score of how you did. But that'll be coming toot sweet.
Okay. Well, I hope I passed.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right. Anything parting thoughts, practical takeaways? What would you want someone to get out of this episode?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing to get out of this episode would be like coding agents are not terrible and they aren't going to steal your job. People, I hate this anecdote, but people who use coding agents are going to steal your job if you don't learn to use them. But yeah, I mean, it's like learn to use them. Don't trust them implicitly. They get you about 60 to 80% of the way there most of the time, but you still got to go in and fix stuff. And if you do work with them and learn to work with them, it can make your job a lot more fulfilling and a lot more fun.
I've been having a blast. I really have.
I've been loving it. I mean, like, I wish that they were out my entire career. Well, not my entire career. I still enjoyed that I got kind of the pre-coding agent era to learn coding.
Right.
But, it's kind of forced to dig through stuff and read documentation for hours. But I wish they were around longer.
What about any talks you're giving anywhere, or any like open source projects coming up? Anything coming up in the near future for you?
We're all going to AWS reInvent
Nice.
at Ariso. So if anybody's going there, feel free to hit us up and hang out. We're going to do a super cool tech demo of Ari. The first time we're letting the public use Ari at AWS reInvent, where we're creating a Slack workspace for Ari to help you coordinate your events and parties and networking and all that fun stuff at AWS reInvent, as well as like suggest contacts of other people who have joined and like suggesting people you can meet and like stuff you can do. So yeah, you should install it and go to AWS reInvent with us.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like fun. I'll have to check out Ari, man, because that's what I've been like, okay, if I had time to do a little side project, I would, an executive assistant would be good to help, keep my life straight.
Yeah.
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 I always forget things. I need someone. I do the whole getting things done, but like the whole process of getting things done it bogs me down. So I'm like, if I can get an AI agent to help me with that, that would be even better. So yeah.
The coolest thing I did last week was I asked her, like Shihan, who she works for Ariso, she scheduled all of our flights and stuff like that, posted them inside of a public channel. And I asked Ari, I was like, hey, take those, add them to my calendar, set up reminders the night before with the link for me to check in, and then email my wife my itinerary so that she knows where I'm at. And she did like all three of them like flawlessly. So yeah.
Now, when she gets to the point where she's like, no problem, I took care of that for you. By the way, I also went ahead and bought a present for your wife's birthday because that's next Tuesday. Then you haven't asked me to do that yet.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for.
If you give her access to Amazon MCP, she could do that. She probably wouldn't do it. We tell her pretty explicitly, like, don't do things without getting users' permission and stuff. But if you set up your tool preferences, one of the cool things with Ari is she'll learn how you use tools. Like, for instance, she was guessing my GitHub username. And then I was like, no, it's this. And then she just remembered that. Now every time she calls GitHub, she uses the right username. So if you had the Amazon MCP server set up and you said, hey, anytime you buy gifts for my wife, it's totally cool. Just buy it under $50. Yeah. You just do that,
Well, hopefully she doesn't get too carried away. Yeah. $50
yeah.
once a month's fine. $50 once a minute might get a little crazy.
Yeah.
I would finally be keeping up with her, my wife, with all the packages on the porch.
That show up.
I'm kidding. She's not that bad. That's just the common joke. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Really enjoyed the conversation. We could geek out for a long time on just AI driven development and stuff. And I'm sure we'll have other conversations in the future for sure. Come back anytime and join us. But really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, James. This is great. Super happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like to get in touch with us here at the /, drop us a line at the/@calibrity.com. See you next time. The / podcast is created by Calibrity. The / team is director and producer Ryan Wilson, editing by Steve Baradelli, marketing support by Taylor Blessing, and I'm your host, James Carman. Thanks for listening.